Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 24 of the Hot Path Show. I'm Johnny, and I'm joined here by Tobias. Welcome in, Tobias. How's it going today?
Except for a bunch of bugs that I didn't expect. It's going good.
Those are always fun when you're dealing with those bugs that you don't expect.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyways, you are going to be taking us through something interesting a little bit later in the show today. So I want you to give people a little preview about what we're going to be talking about here.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk. Yeah, I can just. I don't have to share any screen for this. I
Yeah.
the parallelized code. It's like Unity Dots gives you a lot of tools and a lot of safety around it, and it's very nice and all. But there's a few things that people don't think about until you spend a few years with Dots, and how some things are easily parallelizable, and how some things are like in principle when you think about it, it's like this should be very easy to make into like a bunch of threads, and then when you do it in practice, it's like ECS sort of throws a wrench into it, and you need to like go at it. And I'm going to show a few of the quirks of it.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you're going to be showing it in a little bit of a Boids project for something that you're creating. Is it
Yes.
something that you're creating for the jam, actually?
Yes, I was. I know I had. I don't remember the name of the comment, but me and another person who apparently didn't want to do it when I when I talked about it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
stuck in a literal simulation, so like a Boyd simulation around you, and you need to escape it. So I have a few ideas around that, and it's not done, but it's for a game jam wise, it works pretty all right. So it's the core concept, and I'm gonna show you like there's a twist on the Boyd thing that I'm trying to do, and that needs more nuanced parallelizable data processing. So I'm going to show you my thoughts process and how I solved it and what I'm trying to do with it, and maybe people can learn something about the quirks and things around it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, very much looking forward to it. And yeah, just to remind you all, we are hosting the Turbo Mace Games Dots Game Jam going on right now. We're coming up on the 48-hour mark of just a little over 48 hours remaining in the jam here. So yeah, once again, the theme of the jam is stuck in a simulation. So yeah, you basically have through the rest of this weekend here to finish off the games that you all have been working on. I know there's been some people in the Discord sharing their progress. We also have a couple people who have been streaming the development, and I've actually left some links to their stuff down below. So I know WAYN Games, ITR, and I think Potato Finch is the other one. So they've been streaming their development, so that's available on their Twitch and YouTube channels. So you can check the links down in the description of this to go ahead and check them out. But yeah, check out the Dots Game Jam. Very much looking forward to that. So, anyways, we can go ahead and get into our little prefetch warm-up topic here today. So, wanted to talk about a very exciting topic, which is government paperwork. Okay.
Ooh. Are we on the same sort of slightly leaning into the libertarian point of view, or where are we going
I,
with
I
this?
I would say yeah, but I just want to bring this up because I had to go down to the DMV yesterday, the Department of Motor Vehicles, because as some of you know, I recently moved to a different state, so now I need to become a resident of that state and move over my car registration and all those just little government paperwork things. Had to get all these documents in order and brought them down to the DMV and everything. And it actually ended up being kind of a crazy story because so like I walked in, I didn't have like an appointment or anything like that, and then they were able to basically make me a resident of the new state pretty easily. I didn't have to wait too long for that. But then the car registration ended up being a little bit more of a wait because there's a lot of people in there doing stuff for their cars, people in state, out of state, all that stuff. So then had to wait a little while, did the, transferred it over. And literally, as I was walking out the door, someone stands up and says, Can I have your attention, ladies and gentlemen? If you're doing a car title transfer from out of state, bring it into Colorado. We can no longer process you at this time. Our systems just went down. So yo, I got so lucky. Like if I was there 10 minutes later, I wouldn't have been able to do that, and then I would have had to go back another day, wait again, and everything. So so that's just my little experience yesterday. So just kind of wanted to bring this up and I kind of wanted to get your views on how government paperwork works over in Sweden. Like, is everything as slow and as tedious as it is over in the United States?
You know what? I think the expression "kick the hornet's nest" is not really exactly what but something like you have. Oh my God, you have no idea. So my other half, she is trying to get her things going in Sweden because she's from Latvia.
Okay.
And she has there's some personal things in here which I should leave out, but like she needed some ID card for the bank, and then she, all right, and they're like, you just go to the police and fix that. And then she's like, okay. And then she went to the police, got an appointment, and she had to wait for that appointment. And then she got there, and they were like, "You're not a Swedish citizen." Like, no, I'm not.
What I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, I'm trying. But, you need to go to this place to do it. And it's like, okay, fuck you guys. Bye bye. And I don't know if this was this scheduling or the police scheduling, but I remember she came home and she was like, I need to schedule this thing. And she went into their website, and she to be able to schedule the appointment, she needed to identify herself. And to identify herself in Sweden, you use something called bank ID. And she didn't have that because she's
like, that's what I'm trying to get.
Yes. And then, but they had other identification systems, and they had one that she had, obviously, because European type of thing. But she needed to have a smart card reader to be able to verify her Latvian ID card and be able to, and that smart card reader was sold out everywhere. So she had to order that so she could identify herself on the website, so she could actually schedule an appointment to be able to go and get an ID card. And then she scheduled something, and it was like an hour away from here. She scheduled it, and then when it was getting closer, she was like, "Oh, what was the time again?" And she was trying to find her appointment. Then she called them because she couldn't find it. Like, you don't have an appointment here. I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't seem to be. And apparently she missed a confirm or something, so she had to reschedule again. And then when she get there, we drive over there, and she gets everything going. And like, okay, have a nice day. Come back in 2 weeks when we have made it.
They don't even mail it to you. You have to go pick it up.
Yes. And all of this time, this is we're talking about 4 months. Because there's waiting times. There's the card reader is ordered and comes next week, and you're just shouting and cursing into a wall for 2 straight days and don't want to deal with it. There's all sorts of delays. So government bureaucracy is I don't know. I feel like it's probably actually kind of practically analogous. Yes, analogous. Yeah. The hell is wrong with my tongue? It's that when we say you get 1 point for writing a line of code and 2 points for removing a line of code, because there's a ton of code that doesn't do anything. Just shuffles data around, and you can just do it a lot easier if you just don't try to overcomplicate it. I feel like our government is the peak of that problem. Right? There's just a bunch of old ladies and old male. I should be gender neutral here. All genders sitting in front of a computer, shuffling papers, probably physical papers, and it's just completely unnecessary, probably.
I mean, I definitely understand there's like probably a reason to have like, a lot of the paperwork and everything to, have some sort of
Yeah,
order,
but
but like it
but
is a little bit too much sometimes, and the hoops that you have to go through to make sure everything is correct, and if you're missing one piece of information, then now you got to wait on something else, and then now all of a sudden you have to pay late fees or something. And
yeah, I think it's also part of the thing is like people are like stuck in they're like cogs in the wheels of history, but replace history for like bureaucracy, and they are too like this is a little bit like honestly mean baby, but I'm just gonna say it like I feel it. They're a little bit too what do you call it, they're too chicken to actually do stuff that will help everyday people, because they're like, well, I have this flow chart, I follow that. If you're not inside of the flow chart that my manager or my boss gave
it's like
me,
I don't know how to
I'm
handle
just
this.
clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because so, for example, when she went to the police and she wanted to, I think it was to the police where she went to like, oh, can I get an ID card? And they're like, you should schedule. And there was nobody there. Like, if you go back 50 years, maybe there would have been a police person there. Like, oh, you don't have an appointment, you should
Right.
really
Like they
schedule.
they
But
would they
there's
would
no.
know, they would tell you how to do it. And
Yeah, or they would be like, but you know what? It's fine. There's nobody here. We can just deal with you straight away. Like they would know, and maybe there's a would have been a flow chart at that point
well,
too,
that
where
kind of
it's like,
seems like, I think a lot of government positions like are just kind of like, not my problem kind of thing. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes, exactly. And they have a, if you're outside of their little bubble of stuff that been taught, they're like, yeah, I don't,
But
you're
I
not.
mean, again, I get it. It's like they're kind of part of the system, and like they are probably so busy, just like with that small one thing that they have to do. It's like
Drinking coffee.
maybe.
Okay, my annoyance with this is shining through pretty pretty clearly. Yeah,
So
I
do you
continue.
guys in Sweden have like a concept of like jury duty?
No, no, we don't have that at all. We don't have the same concept. We have a Supreme Court sort of equivalent, and we have like district courts and stuff like that. But it's all, so we have the same like sort of level of the severity situation, but it's all just run by professionals. And and I'm not 100% sure which side I fall on, if I think the everyday citizen should be part of the of the judicial system, but we don't have it, and I'm not sure if it's a good idea. Honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But
Yeah.
what do you
Well,
think?
yeah. I only bring that up because I got summoned for jury duty in the previous
Oh,
state that I lived in,
where did you live in?
in
California.
California. Yeah.
Right, right, right.
So I don't live in California anymore,
So you can just
and
ignore it?
well, no, I basically have to prove now that I live in a different state and everything.
Ah,
So, got to go through that
is it
process
enough
now.
to like
So,
take a picture of you of the? You live in like Colorado, right?
yeah, yeah.
Doesn't it have like a nice views and stuff? You can like take a picture of the views. Like, I'm not around. Bye.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll work just well.
Yes, yes. But no, yeah. Do you feel like? But do you think it's a good idea, the jury duty for everyday citizen?
Um, Hard for me to kind of have a strong opinion just because I've never like really been a part of that. Um,
Mm, mm.
so like I think it would be interesting to kind of like see the other side, like if I actually was a part of it, to like, if I was like on a jury, it's like, if I was standing trial for something, would I want me and this group of people that I'm with to, essentially kind of like decide my fate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. I think it's
So
just like.
it's interesting. I think it's like, I think it's definitely like something kind of cool about, yeah, a jury of your peers and all this, but then again, think about the, average people that you encounter on a day-to-day basis.
I can never decide if I think the average people is a people to like give a lot of intelligence trust to, or if it's just like, oh my god, the average people. No, I don't want to be too this. It's tricky. You don't want to be elitist about your thoughts around it, because people are people, and that's just the way it is. But sometimes it feels like, it feels weird to think about, everyday people would judge like a murderer or something.
Right.
Yeah, that's strange to me. At the same time, I don't know, maybe that's like a thing that you like. Sometimes there's a process that, like, a lot of, like, a significant amount of time, it results in like subpar results, but the alternative will just dwell like decay into worse. You know what I mean? It's like, well, this is like, we need this.
Like, you mean if everything's like completely institutionalized and like
Yeah, maybe
that
it
could
will
almost
just,
be corrupted or something?
yes, something like that. It's like, this is like, people say like, oh well, democracy is bad, but it's the lesser bad of everything else we got. It's something like that. I feel sometimes it's maybe jury duty with everyday peers. It's like, in practice it's a bit strange sometimes, but if you don't have it, you just degenerate into, what you said, um, corruption and I don't know, not nepotism.
Something, yeah,
Corruption mainly.
similar. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Interesting. Well, and then we can kind of end on this one here, but so you guys live in a society over there, right? You guys have the ability to vote, I'm sure, right?
I hope so. I've done it a few times. I hope it goes somewhere.
So when you go to vote, do you have to show like your ID card or something like that?
Ooh, I see where this is going. Yes, we have to show our ID card.
Because that's not a thing in the U.S. And I think it's so strange that you have that's like literally the only thing that you don't have to show an ID for, and it's always like it's just like so insane that like I always make a point on like voting day that I like go on a run and like run to the polling place close to my house, but I don't bring my wallet or anything. Like I just don't even have it on me.
What?
And then I walk up, I say my name, they check the thing. I have a pretty common name, so there's like 4 other people with the same first and last name as me. And they're like, "Oh, are you, this person like 3 cities away?" I'm like, "No. I'm this person at this address right down the street." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
So, and you just get to vote like that?
Yep. I could walk in, I could say my dad's name, I could have said my mom's name, I could have said my next door neighbor's name.
Your mom's name?
Yeah. They'd be like, "Okay."
What's your mom's name? What's your
Wendy.
mom's first name? Wendy.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Wendy.
They'd be like, "Okay."
I'm sorry, but the beard really, you don't look like a Wendy. I think you will get caught by that. No, it's so weird. Like I sometimes involve myself a little bit too much into American politics. It's a little bit more action, so to speak, than in Sweden, I think. And we don't have a lot of what would you say, interesting pundits to listen to about it. You have a much more entertaining pundits around it. I don't know if pundit is the right word, but that's the way I think you understand what I say. Anyway, around your voting thing, and like, the Democrats versus Republicans thoughts around, oh, you should have to identify yourself. Oh no, that's racist because there's plenty of people coming and they need to be like, I'm like, what? You don't have identifications for voting? And that's like and having identification for what voting should be a bad thing. Like, why do we even have a citizenship? What's the goddamn point? Like, isn't like voting on your leaders like the core thing about being a citizen? Am I like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's like, one of the rights that we're guaranteed as an American citizen, and you would think that American citizens would have an ID card.
I'm just so confused.
But,
and
there are people who have their arguments for it, so
it feels like both the
Republicans
Republicans and the Democrats are like cherry picking arguments to pull from. Oh, that's how Europe does it. like Democrats are like, oh, that's how you see they have free healthcare and blah 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 blah, and like, yeah, maybe you should adopt that, but and then they're like, oh, voter ID, I never heard of it. Nah, no. It's really strange. Yeah. But yeah, I show my driver license, which is the ID mostly that you use in Sweden. Every time I do something like that, that's they like stand in the doorway at the place where I vote, and like you can't even come in if you don't have that. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and that was actually another thing that I was going to ask you about. But so you have a driver's license. Like, do you drive like
yeah,
semi regularly or?
yeah. Nowadays, since my other half, she's driving a lot, and when we go to grocery shopping, I usually drive because I don't drive that much. I need to practice and not be a menace in the traffic.
Because
Yeah.
when you were like a little bit more in the city, like the previous place that you were in, like you didn't really have to drive too much.
Yeah, I had a car between '09 and 14, I think, in Skövde, and then I sold it because I didn't need it. My
Okay.
mother is a traffic teacher.
Oh,
so,
okay.
so I have both a car license and motorcycle
Oh,
license.
cool. Nice.
Yeah, but I own none of the vehicles. I once owned both, and I've sold them both because it's expensive, and in the city you don't need it.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know Danny, like, I think he said that, like, during school, he, like, took some driver's courses. And so, like, I think he technically has a license, but he's, like, never driven since then.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's just the way it technically is sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had a year of not driving for a few times during the past 5-10 years of not owning a car, and it's like when you get into a car, you're like, yeah. I should drive a little bit more if I should keep that. Otherwise, I think I'm falling to the same category as like a 90-year-old dude who
Yeah, where you're,
should
like,
not have a driver license anymore.
drifting in someone else's lane or.
Yes. Well, honestly, it's more about the nuances when you like tricky like intersections and parking and stuff
Oh,
like that.
okay,
That
okay.
I think that's the more like driving straight on the road, I guess could be strange if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know
But it's more like who goes first in the.
yeah,
So,
those
yeah.
things, yeah, and being having the routine of where to look and how to the cadence of traffic. I think it's tricky if you don't do it a lot. Yeah, there's a comment here. I think it's about Swedish politics. What SD interviews can be hilarious. Yeah, SD if it's about Sweden, it's Sweden Democrats they're talking about, and they are like
Okay.
the big controversial. They are like anti-immigration and stuff like that. And Sweden has some issues with this problem, and there's
But
a
it's not
wide.
like what we have in the U.S. where there's just a giant.
Well, if you go to the wrong places in Sweden, there is a big issue, and some places there's no issue. So
Is
I don't
it
know.
is it all the Danish people trying to cross the ice border to hit you guys with sticks?
Um, if I almost said I wish it was, but well, it's more complicated.
You don't have
than
to.
that
You don't
for
have to
sure.
go. Yeah, I was just making a joke.
No, I get it. Yeah, I don't mind like a little bit picking a side. I think it's an issue, and I think we need to deal it somehow. I don't know who has the right answers. It's a spicy thing to be sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of spicy things, let's talk about what this show is about, which is programming. So, yeah, fun little warm up topic, though, talking about government paperwork.
Yes. Bureaucracy.
Oh,
Yay.
yeah.
The Romans
So,
would have been proud. Continue.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's go ahead and I'm going to share the Unity Dots quick tip of the week here. So, this one is kind of piggybacking a little bit off of one that I kind of showcased a couple weeks ago where I had this little kind of vehicle driving simulator thing where this right here is like basically just kind of like a little test track that I've set up. And I think I kind of showcased that. Let me go ahead and hit the play button here. Oh, what's going on? We're gonna hide that. Leave that for another time. Um, okay, so it's not showing the actual flow field. Oh, I think I have to. I think there's a system I need to enable. Anyways, you remember that I basically created this like giant flow field, and that's kind of how I have these like AI vehicles that kind of navigate around the flow field, and then like that's kind of how I have like these AI vehicles created so that like if they kind of bump off the track a little bit, then they kind of come back to the center and are able to complete a lap by kind of using a flow field rather than like kind of individually doing their own pathfinding.
Right. Yeah.
Now I was showing that the flow field, it like took a while to bake because I'm like kind of using Unity's like managed splines to kind of like create the
Right.
path. And then so I'm kind of going through for like every single cell, determining the closest point, the distance, how far away that is, the tangent of the spline at that point, like a bunch of things like that. So it ends up taking quite a while. For this just little scene right here, I think it's like it's 300 units by 300 units, and then I'm doing 150 by 150 cells. And it takes about like 90 seconds to bake. So it's like kind of a little bit of a while.
That's That's
and so it's like, yeah, like, because it was like when I had this kind of like in the main entity scene, like anytime I would, enter play mode, if I had the scene loaded, then it would kind of like have to go through this whole rebaking process, and it would like take kind of a while.
yeah.
And so what I kind of showcased a couple weeks ago is that if you like uncheck the entity scene, then it just bakes that one time, and then it doesn't have to bake every time you enter play mode or all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what I actually did here is I created a separate subscene, and I have just the flow field sitting in that subscene. And then I can have this main entity scene, and then this has just kind of like all the regular, vehicles and geometry and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then so this, I can have this open, I can enter play mode, and it doesn't like take forever to bake and all this. But then I just have the flow field sitting in a separate subscene, and then this works just fine because I can leave this subscene closed and I don't have to worry about it needing to rebake all the time and everything. And the cool thing is, even though these are in separate subscenes, they basically bake everything into the same ECS world. So, anything that I say create in the main subscene, it's able to, still reference things like the flow field, like it's still able to sample the flow field in the other subscene because it's all really in the ECS world, which is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
So just kind of wanted to showcase that like even though you have multiple subscenes, you can't like necessarily like do the one limitation really is you can't do like cross scene references. So like if I had something in the entity scene where I needed like a direct reference to the flow field, like I couldn't drag that in the editor.
So you have to find it in runtime if you
exactly. You got to find it in runtime. So
that makes sense.
just kind of wanted to point that out because even this took about 90 seconds, and then like for the final build of the game, and you guys are going to be seeing this game in I think a couple weeks here, but I have a much bigger track, and then I did like very granular. I think I literally did like 1 unit by 1 unit cells, like very very granular cells, just to have a little bit more accuracy and granularity there. It actually took about like 10 minutes to bake. So
10 minutes?
Yeah.
Did you profile that to see what there was like the most thing that it took time on?
I mean, like the only thing that it's really doing is that kind of spline tangent checking, like.
and it's not bursted at all, I guess.
No, because it's all Unity's managed spline.
So it's probably just really bad cache efficiency and not really like about math or quantity. It's just like it's too much to fit in a reasonable cache, and it just scatters around for a crazy amount of time, just jumping around in memory trying to typical C# code. Yeah.
exactly that. And yeah, I'm sure the operations that it's doing are decently complex because
No.
I got to figure out the closest point on a spline, and then figure out the tangent of that. And
But you said it was 300 times 300?
no, it's like uh
I
no,
misheard.
I can't remember what is it. It's like a couple thousand by a couple thousand.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so we're talking about millions of effective units,
Yeah,
effective data points of some
correct.
sort.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
and all
yeah.
of them has like a significant code chunk to execute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The 300 by 300 is just the smaller test track here.
I don't want to sidetrack you, but one thing to think about in these cases where we're looking at something that takes 1.5 minutes, and then we're talking about, oh yeah, it's a million entities or something, and this isn't bursted. So then you can like, if you just like think about the performance of a normal CPU, and you got 3.7 billion operations per second, and you're like, if you do the back of the napkin math, you're like, now we know that managed memory is yeah,
Yeah,
that's the issue here. But one can just like do a sanity check, like, that doesn't make sense.
right.
Like, we
Yeah,
should
yeah,
be
yeah.
able to do like a 10,000 instruction on each of these guys and still have plenty enough to do it in like a few seconds.
Right, right, right,
Right.
right. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's just, I guess, RAM, RAM and cache misses that just makes it really, really slow, probably.
yeah.
Mostly.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Anyway, so just so yeah, the sanity check I feel is sometimes really good to like, what should I be able to do here if I actually had the perfect code, Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Continue.
No, I mean that's just kind of mostly what I wanted to say is that yeah, we can split things up into multiple sub scenes like that, and again, all these things can kind of interact. Um, and yeah, I do see this one other comment here. Could you get around that by proxy through a scriptable object? So I'm guessing that's basically like I would do kind of this baking step and then bake all this data into a scriptable object. If that's kind of how I'm interpreting that. Is that
Uh,
do you kind of interpret that the same way? I guess.
I was hoping that you had an idea what exactly. I assume that SO was scriptable object, but I'm not entirely sure myself. So maybe refresh like the baked data. That's static data in this case that we're talking about. It just changes when you do a layout change, I guess.
Yeah, only like really in this case, only like when I really like change the spline or change the size of the cells or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
So it's
properties like
not that
that.
often that you need to do this.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
yeah. Well, I don't really see how a scriptable object will be really relevant here, or am I missing something?
I think the idea is to basically like save all that data off into like a scriptable object instead of like as opposed to separating things out into multiple subscenes, like kind of save everything off into a scriptable object, and then that data is kind of baked and stored, and you can kind of use that like as the data that would be loaded in.
I'm missing something in the problem here. If you want to continue, I can probably piece it together. But if you want to re-explain exactly what,
I'm guessing this is just like a different way to store the data. Like rather than storing it baked into the subscene, you're storing it off in a scriptable object.
yeah, but why would that make a difference?
As far as like if you just wanted to have one subscene and then like you can leave it open and you don't have to worry about the subscene having to remake
Okay.
every single time.
Okay. So it's like a pipeline diversion thing that you don't need to like have this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I see.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
But, but,
yeah, I
but
think it's an option, but I kind of like the yeah separate subscene approach personally. It seems to work well.
and I mean, when you have it loaded, when you have the thing generated, the data baked, the loading of the already baked data is like the fastest it can ever be in a subscene.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much data that would be to load, but at least like loading subscene data baked as a subscene is just, literally just copying memory straight into RAM and then just
That's kind of what I
yeah.
assume it is.
So
Yeah.
that's a good thing about it, I guess.
Yeah. So
All
that
right.
is the quick tip of the week there. Just wanted to kind of let you all know about that.
I didn't actually realize that. I never thought about the several different subscenes ending up in the same ECS world. But obviously, it should be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I've never had several different subscenes for that. Well, I have two different subscenes in Just Read Instructions, but it's like it never occurred to me. Will this end up in the same world?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just something you don't necessarily think
Yeah,
about, but then you like
yeah.
just sit down and like think about it for a sec. You're like, oh yeah, I mean that totally makes sense. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. By the way,
By
I
the
just
way,
realized I can add a second quick tip just straight up if you don't have anything. Like I just realized I ran into a very interesting, well, very annoying issue today, which is a small quick tip thing, and I could maybe add it to while we're at the
or do you
quick
want
tip.
to, or do you want to save it for next week?
I guess we can do that.
We'll
Yeah.
we'll leave that as a little teaser for next week.
All right. Yes.
Write it down so you don't forget, though.
Yes. Yes. Well, I will remember. Yeah. Continue.
Okay. Yeah, I also just realized that I have a couple of miscellaneous announcements that I haven't gotten a chance to bring about real quick. So yeah, we already mentioned a little earlier the Turbo Makes Games Dots Game Jam is going on right now. Have a couple links in the description for you to sign up for the game jam, as well as there have been a couple people in the community who've been streaming their development. So feel free to go ahead, check them out, show some love. Of course, check the Turbo Makes Games Discord for people's progress on that. And again, that's finishing up at the end of this weekend. So if you still want to start, you have a little bit over 48 hours to do so. And yeah, it should be a fun time. Next up, I do want to mention that Unity is doing a bunch of kind of like multiplayer related things over the coming weeks. So I think they have a couple like webinars that they've been putting on, but really exciting one next week on, I believe this is going to be the 17th, which is Wednesday, July 17th. They're going to be doing a multiplayer stream where a couple people from Unity, as well as yours truly, myself, are going to be on Unity's official stream talking about some multiplayer topics. So I believe that's at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I should figure that out. So yeah, we're going to be talking about netcode for game objects, netcode for entities, some good multiplayer stuff. Yeah, I think it should definitely be a fun time. So very much looking forward to that. Okay, another thing. Unity Forums is currently in read-only mode. I don't know if you saw this.
No, I missed that completely.
Because they're going to be migrating their forums over to I think it's all going through like Unity discussions basically. So yeah, here's something that I was actually gonna showcase next anyways, but I can just kind of pull this up here. So yeah, at the top of the forums, they say we're migrating Unity forums to Unity discussions on. Should show this for everybody.
Tomorrow.
So July 12th, no, July 12th is today. So the forums will become read-only. July 15th, Unity discussions will be read-only. And July 18th, new design and the migrated contents for the forum will go live. And they have a full announcement about all the details and everything. And this is just kind of at the top of all the forum pages here. So if you scroll down here, you'll see that I can't comment anything on this post. It says you have insufficient privileges to reply here. I'm logged in and everything, and I can't even like any posts.
Oof.
So yeah. So
we only have ChatGPT now, I guess.
we only have ChatGPT. And the Unity Discord and other
And
things.
and us too.
And us. You can ask us questions, of course. We are live here today. But yeah, so just wanted to point that out. Unity forums are going to be migrated. And so yeah, next week, hopefully if all things go well, by the time we're live next week, the Unity forums will be moved over to Unity discussions. So yeah, that's happening. Next thing I wanted to point out, on the Unity forums, I saw that there was a new release of Mega City Metro. So I thought this was kind of cool that they actually did like an update to the sample project. Yeah. Nice. It seems like a pretty sizable update too. They're calling this version 1.1. They added some kind of like new keyboard UI, new annotated shader graphs. They updated the dots packages to 1.2.1, upgraded the editor version, VVox, this, and then they kind of did like a bunch of just like little fixes. So I think it's kind of cool that they're like keeping their sample project up to date, and it's not just kind of like they put out the sample project and that's the sample project, and if any issues pop up or if as things kind of change and evolve over time, that those things are kind of all accounted for. So I thought this was cool that they're pushed out an update to this Mega City Metro sample project.
I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised that this hasn't been the case for more situations. Because I feel when I remember the times I've upgraded mainly just read instructions to later versions of ECS, that's one of those workloads that I sort of, obviously it's not like creative type of a workload, but it's like almost like nice, and like you just like, well, I got this goal and I just need to change all of this and I need to go through it and I need to fix all the errors. Like it's a very it's a good kind of monotone work. And I'm a little bit surprised that nobody at Unity earlier let's just take all the samples and just push them into Unity 2023 and just fix all the issues, take away all the warnings, all the obsoletes and whatever. Feels like a thing that somebody should be like this.
Yeah,
this is a nice Friday afternoon thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then I think this is available on GitHub. So I mean, you could even go in and see, you go into the commits and see the actual changes that they did, and if there are any fixes that they had to do. Yeah,
I think that's completely the right way to deal with that kind of learning resource.
Yeah. So there's that. And then, just kind of wanted to remind you all that Unity's Unite event is happening this year in Barcelona. Once again, you can still get your tickets on their early bird discount through the end of this month. So if you're, want to go to Unity's Unite event this year, would highly recommend picking those tickets up before the price increases, basically next month. I'm going to be there. Tobias is going to be there, and I think we're still waiting to see if Danny's going to be there, but hopefully he makes an appearance, and we'll have the full Hot Path Show gang there.
Yeah, that's going to be a good week, almost a good 3 days.
Yeah, totally. It'll be a nice little vacation / learning, and I know there's I've definitely heard a lot of rumblings about cool things happening. There's a bunch of things that I just don't have any knowledge about that people keep kind of hinting at that I'm just what is it? So hopefully we'll see some of that stuff there.
Danny have been a little bit stuff is going on.
Yeah, I know. But he's good about keeping his lips shut. So
yes. I mean, if we lived, one of us lived closer to him, maybe we can take it out to a bar and all the beans. But unfortunately, we both live very far away. Well, you will live very far away.
I live very far away. Yeah.
I only live 5 hours with train away.
Yeah, you can walk over the ice and he'll hit you with a stick.
Yes.
Okay. And then, yeah, I also wanted to remind you all that you can support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/TurboMaceGames, as well as through YouTube memberships just by clicking the little join button below this video here. And yeah, I have a bunch of cool little bonuses. I just posted a bunch of bonus videos for the previous month. So one was kind of on what I called emergent game design. So basically kind of like you're talking about some games like, say, that new Legend of Zelda game, or even the more recent Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom game, where they just kind of give you a bunch of tools to play with, and then kind of you as the developer can kind of combine you as the player can kind of combine those all in interesting ways and kind of have emergent behavior come from it. And I think it was kind of like an interesting topic, and I kind of related it to Unity's entity component system and how you can kind of achieve something similar by kind of structuring your game like that. So there's that. That's available to everybody. Also did a Q&A episode for people at the L2 cash tier and up. So we had a question actually related to having multiple subscenes, and so I kind of talked a little bit about this topic of multiple subscenes, kind of the pros and cons. I kind of go into a little bit more detail than we're talking about here today about some of the considerations that you need to make, and kind of some of the advantages of just subscenes in general and why you might want to have multiple ones. And then I also did another video for the behind the scenes episode, kind of talking about the kind of whole Adobe situation that has been happening recently, because I use the Adobe products, so I'm kind of like in a little bit of a dilemma, not necessarily because like I care too much about the specific changes that they were making, but like it just like that kind of situation got me thinking, it's like, do I really want to like pay for this right now, because it's like kind of expensive and there are other options out there. So I kind of talk a little bit about that. So if you're interested in kind of some of the behind the scenes things about what's going on over here, feel free to check that out.
Just to add one thing,
Yeah.
Anse, my girlfriend, had a subscription for, I think, just one or two of the product.
Yeah. Okay.
And she didn't want to use it anymore, and she's like, she called them like, I want to end it, and like, oh, it's gonna cost you like, I don't know what it was, like 400 euros or some stupid thing like
wow.
that. Yeah, their cancellation fees are crazy. For somehow it's legal or like a valid contract situation.
Yeah.
But what did she do? Well, she just closed the account for the card that she was paying it with, and then just forgot about it. Like, well, have fun now trying to get my money, and
Nice.
I'm moving to another country. Bye-bye.
That's awesome. That's
So,
awesome. That's the way.
yeah.
That's 100% the way you should handle that.
Yes, I used to pay for Adobe. Maybe I don't anymore. Maybe I'm like,
Sail in
screw
the
you
high
guys.
seas.
Yes. So yeah, and also I think Adobe is getting sued by your government right now.
They indeed are, for
Yeah.
basically what you brought up about, I think, yeah, kind of some of the difficulty to cancel and fees and stuff like that. So I actually went to, because a lot of times like when you go to cancel for Adobe, they'll give you like different offers for like a cheaper price or whatever. And so actually one that they had right now was they're just giving me my same subscription free for the next 2 months. So I basically have the next 2 months to learn some new tools and see what I want, if I want to use those, and all that. So
Yeah.
fun times.
Sometimes.
And then, yeah, just one other thing on Patreon and YouTube support. If you are at the L1 cash tier or up, and you are participating in the Game Jam, I'm going to be prioritizing playing those games on stream. Want to do a stream probably sometime next week if I have the time, to just play through some of the entries for the Game Jam. I think it would be very fun to kind of celebrate people's work and everything. So, yeah. With that, we can now get into kind of one of the topics of discussion that we had here today, which was this right here. So, frequent forum contributor DreamingImLatios basically posts these kind of like ECS reviews from time to time, just kind of going over his whole thoughts on all the different ECS packages and everything like that. So it's quite an extensive post here. A lot of interesting things to go about. So yeah, just kind of wanted to break down this a little bit. Of course, feel free to go to the actual Unity forums and check it out for yourself and kind of read through the whole thing here. But just kind of wanted to bring this up and see, Tobias, if you kind of agree with some of the points that he's making here. And we can kind of see where the conversation goes here.
Yeah.
So basically starts off by kind of talking about his general feeling. So he started off by saying, "Last time I complained that entities 1.x feels abandoned. I don't feel that way anymore. That's a victory. However, this feeling is replaced by the feeling that the DOTS teams are severely understaffed and overloaded by process overhead." He says that because some areas are seeing extremely slow progression, even for low-hanging fruits. So how much would you say you kind of agree with that kind of almost opening statement here about, how maybe even kind of going back to the entities 1.x, it maybe felt a little bit stagnant and kind of almost abandoned, but then, now we're definitely seeing more progress, but progress is seeming a little bit slow. Do you kind of have any thoughts on things kind of related to that at all?
I don't have a lot of experience with further beyond 1.0. I've coded in the Boids thing. I'm going to show later is coded in it, but the differences and the upgrades with the 1.2 I've not really looked too much at the different changes, so I can't tell for sure. But I think probably. It feels a little bit sad to me that I remember 2018-19 when I think there was some talk by Johan Ante, Joachim Ante, yeah, and he's like, well, we're gonna be a lot more open about the development and let you get in on the things early and let's just go and let's see where it's going. And then they released entities and they had entities with the burst and everything is going to be available soon enough. Let's go. It's not production yet, but
right,
let's go. And then they got so many people jumped on and then turned around and this is a hot garbage mess. It doesn't work at all, and it's just so cumbersome to work with. And some of it was valid feedback, and some of it was just people slightly being, in lack of a better word, spoiled with the easiness of Unity, and they don't I think DOTS is slightly another beast in how what you can do with it, but it requires more from you.
Yeah.
And they got pushback on the early access type of a deal that they wanted to do, and now I think probably the process overhead, and it's just going slowly because they can't move that fast anymore because it needs to work and it needs to be well made and stuff, because last time we tried to just go fast and break stuff, everybody just hated us for 2 years. And since they moved away from runtime conversions into just baking, it feels like there isn't really a big paradigm shifts anywhere.
Well, that's actually interesting that you brought that up, because I'll talk a little bit about kind of my thoughts on what you're saying there, but I do just want to say this is a little bit of a tangent here. I don't know if I can find it, but I think he was actually saying here that DOTS has a steep learning curve. People still complain about resources being out of date and things always changing, even though the API has been stable for over a year and a half. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's there have been a lot of good changes, but at the same time, the API has been pretty stable. For the most part, code that you write in one version is going to continue to still work and so that some of the newer ones.
Yeah. But I guess it's they have stabilized it, and I prefer that to be the case, and I value that about most, well, everything else probably, but it's still a little bit like I was fine with the shakiness of stuff when they released early experimental things. Uh, and then like I've heard, I don't know, like 10, 20 times around the people, semi-professional and professional people around me in the industry in Sweden, were like, oh, I looked at Unity dots, but I found some old example code and it didn't even compile, so like it's just trash things. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I missed that thing where you like you like 2020, 2021, I was just looking at the forums every day because there's something new all the time because it's just moving so fast and it's so interesting. And then they got so much backlash, and now it's like now I guess we only seen the stabilized part, and um maybe it's even like extra slow overhead because of, they're being a public company and all of that. But I don't know, it's just a little bit sad that they sort of burnt that thing to the ground a little bit, and like now people, there's no way for them to share stuff without people being, oh, this is the newest thing, I should use that, and then they're being
Right.
annoyed when it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. It's they're kind of in a tough situation just because of like the whole history of ECS and how, yeah, like you say, it kind of was in that broken state, and yeah, there were a lot of people kind of upset with them, but there were also people like you who were like a lot more hardcore and into it, and were like could
Yes.
live with it, and like you want to experiment with like all the cool and interesting new tech, but they kind of have to like you know at some point say, all right, we got to make a decision, and now we're going to be kind of committing towards the more stable, solid approach.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know. Me and Erasmus, we had long walks together where we were like so excited about all the new things and all the cool stuff, and how everything was just super shaky all the time. And like, but stuff is happening. We're trying stuff, and I got the entities package permanently living inside of the packages folder, and not, you know, package cache unmodifiable. And you just like you just went ham, and then you modified it until it did what you wanted it to do, and it was just, yeah, it was kind of a free for all thing, which I enjoyed. And all I heard from other people, except for like me and the other people at Stanlock, was like, oh, Unity has just turned the wrong corner, they're just releasing crap. So yeah, I don't know, maybe we just have to live with the fact that it's going slowly, and the process is a lot more complicated because they need to release stable stuff from now on, I guess. And I hope it doesn't degenerate more into just slower and slower and slower, because they're just getting like you know I don't know.
yeah.
Are you afraid of that?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I think. I mean, again, this kind of comes back a little bit to the point about maybe the teams being understaffed, and I mean, I I don't know exactly how many people are kind of on the dots teams, but I know like Unity is like several thousands of people large, but I know there are like definitely nowhere close to even 1,000 people working on dots, right?
No, and we don't probably want that either.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say too. Is like I don't think that the solution is going to be throwing more engineers at the problem necessarily. I think, maybe some of that could definitely help, at a smaller scale, but, it's not always a good solution to just kind of like ramp up, say, okay, we have, this much work that we need to do. Let's just kind of, hire as many people as possible. And then, yeah, now things start to get a lot more fragmented. And I think in general, it's probably a good thing to be, a little bit smaller, where people are kind of like, there's like individuals who are kind of like have like responsible for certain parts of the code base, and yeah, they collaborate with other people, and but it's still kind of small enough where the whole team can kind of have a clear vision of what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. It's small enough for that. Yeah, I don't know how many people are working and how many colleagues Danny has, but it feels like I hope it's just the right amount. It's like I agree. It should be something where every person can have a reasonable overview of the whole situation and get a lot of work done because they have like, yeah, I'm a big
Yeah.
part of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like, again, I don't really know the exact internal makeup, but from kind of like what I've been able to gather from the outside looking in, it kind of seems like they are more that where they're still kind of definitely on the smaller side, but there's like really good engineers there who are more than capable of completing the work at hand. But I know that there is a lot of things that they need to do. I mean, because even like ECS in the direction that it's going right now, there's still so many things that they could be doing and probably are doing. But then there's also the whole kind of thing looming off in the distance that they've already said at GDC earlier this year, where every game object is now going to have an entity companion, and what does that look like now that ECS is like almost the backbone of the entire game engine? Like that doesn't sound like an easy task.
That's very fascinating, actually. Like, who knows what the hell that means in practice for them? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, there's kind of a lot of things on the horizon, but it seems like they're making headway in that direction.
Yeah.
But
well, maybe we should go on to if there was any other things. We got stuck on this for.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing to.
Well, stuck is the wrong word.
It's a good way to kind of start this conversation, just kind of like talking about the general feelings. So, that's kind of what he says there, and then kind of continuing off that statement about people complaining about some things being out of date and changing, even though the API has actually been stable. The DreamingImLatios says that. In his eyes, the problem isn't that the packages are having all these changes. It's more that kind of like the patterns are changing over time. And I think even like we've seen this a little bit, just like with things on the Hot Path show, where like I have some bit of code, and Danny's like, oh, you could like do this, this, and this, and it's actually better if you do this way. And it's like, it's like I didn't necessarily know that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then he kind of shares a couple examples about, how these kind of two jobs do basically the same thing, but have some minor differences. And he says he's like not really sure which one is kind of the right one to do, or, maybe there's some scenarios where you would want one over the other, and that's not always kind of clear.
Oh, right. I didn't know that the story entity can take a chunk indexing query. Why would you need that?
Well, because it's a parallel command buffer is why.
Oh, so it helps you. Okay, it uses the chunk and index as a sort key. I see.
So he's either using the chunk and index as a sort key or native set thread index. So I guess passing a thread index into the job.
And chunk index in query was the thing that I think you told me about, and Danny had told you about. That was faster to calculate than entity index in query.
Exactly. Yeah. So but we don't have to necessarily talk about that too much. But and actually, I don't think we could probably skip over this for the time being. But he actually kind of does like a breakdown of all the different packages, and he said he wanted to keep it a little bit more brief, but as you can see, it's still quite a lengthy post here. But,
well, it's brief for him, I think. He has some wall of text. Very interesting, but still wall of text.
Yeah. So basically his strategy was for each package, he writes one good thing, one bad thing, and one question. Basically like, some question that he like legitimately kind of has for, the Unity or whoever is kind of reading it here.
Yeah.
So you can kind of read through these for the most part. There's a couple ones that I wanted to touch on here. So for jobs, the good thing is that I've seen more effort at making jobs faster, even in LTS, so that's definitely good. But he does say that while jobs are fast on worker threads, scheduling from the main thread has significant overhead still, In addition, the main thread always needs to know the number of jobs to schedule in advance, which in some situations can result in sync points. The sync points in Unity physics are an example of this.
Isn't the deferred parallel schedule that where another thread can inform the amount of threads needs to be started?
Oh, I didn't know about that actually.
I think so. I never used it. I never had a use case for it, but I
Okay.
read about it, and I think that's the case. Maybe somebody in the comments can inform us. Yeah, that would be what I would think deferred would mean. But yeah.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that one specifically too much. But I guess I just wanted to kind of touch on this a little bit. Like, is this something that you had kind of experienced, like kind of the scheduling overhead of jobs and, almost.
No, I don't have enough jobs. It's like just read instruction, have plenty of things to do on parallel threads, but it's not that many individual jobs that needs to be created and scheduled. It's more about, all right, let's simulate all our 1,000 enemies, and then that's it. But yeah, it's I know that Stalnock had a lot of issues with a million systems scheduling a million jobs, and they had to like optimize a lot of it to make V Rising work faster. So yeah, I don't know. With I system, it feels like it shouldn't be that big of an issue, but maybe it is when you get into a big enough scale. Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I haven't really run into this issue, so I don't really know.
Well, and then also, because I think didn't they say in one of the kind of roadmap things that they're working on having the ability for I systems themselves to run on worker threads? So then that almost seems like you could schedule a job from a worker thread, right?
Yeah, but schedule a job, but didn't you just say I system on a
Yeah,
worker
like so like
thread?
the I system would be running on the worker thread and you could like have,
Have
logic
it
running on that
scheduled.
worker thread, but I'm assuming you could also schedule jobs from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can schedule jobs from another thread, not the main thread. So I don't know. Um, uh, oh man, my brain is just
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of
no,
putting
no,
it
no,
out there.
no. I'm just
Again,
saying.
it's all theoretical because it doesn't exist right now. So
There's like a bell ringing in my head about one thing that I read somewhere and looked at, and I can't remember. It was somebody writing about, oh, I have this thing where I don't really know how to know how many things I'm gonna need to do or what exactly I'm gonna do, but this thread is calculating it, but everything is just completely void from they don't have any dependencies on the rest of the system, so I should be able to do this and this and this. And then was somebody from Unity like, oh, you can use this thing and you can schedule how many jobs you want from this other job. And for me, I looked at that and like, I haven't even thought about that. Jesus Christ, that's complicated. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but being I also think there's something that you should probably be wary of this kind of thing, because like unless you have a special case, which is, obviously this is a situation where you have a special case. You're like, I need to schedule this thing from another job. That's the only way I can really squeeze all of the performance out of this. But otherwise, I think this is going into this code becomes so complex just for performance sake that is a little bit harder to maintain. And I think I truly do not expect or rely on Unity to make this very easy to work with, and because it cannot be super easy, right? Keeping track of dependencies and scheduling stuff from multiple different jobs and starting other jobs and making sure everything works. Like obviously that's a complex
well, yeah, I mean
problem. And
that's one of the main advantages of the job system is that you don't have to worry about that. Like it kind of takes care of all that for you.
yeah, but the problem is like you still have like a billion. You could have a lot of unintended dependencies and just traffic jam your whole thread thing. And it's unless you know how to decode the dependency tracking in the editor or in the in the profiler and stuff, it's really hard to track down how to decouple things enough for them to actually run in parallel, because sometimes you just pull in one component and then just all the parallelisms goes down the drain, because you have some weird dependency which just blocks everything up. So, and I think when it gets to this complex stuff, it's really hard to keep track of that. I have several times where I have to like pause my whole development of just read instructions, and like I need to like pick apart all the different things to happen so I can have the sound thing going on while all the enemies are updating and stuff, because there's something going on here which just locks one before the other one, and it just doesn't really want to work out. And this sounds like at least twice as complicated. So I'm just like, even though obviously it keeps the safety going with the job system, sometimes because of the safety and because of its all the components that you need for your game, when you just run it, it doesn't actually run in parallel, because the safety has to prevent it, because, well, you can't. If you want all of these components in this read and write access in this configuration, it can't be in parallel anymore. And that's what, and then the job system is actually preventing you for a good reason, but it's complicated to understand. I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place, but do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things in there. So
Yeah, it's just complex to make stuff really parallel and make the parallel things start other parallel things, and it's just, you can't expect the job system and compilers to just magically make everything work all the time.
That's true.
Sometimes it just will just block it on a sync point on main thread, and you're like, well, I don't really know what's going on. There's like 15 dependencies all around the place, and I need to like pick them apart to be able to actually make it parallel. It's all of it is safe, but it's not parallel anymore. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So it's
just brings you back to the problem that you're trying to solve, right?
Yeah. Parallel processing is tricky.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Moving on to baking. So they say entities 1, 2, 3, they get warning about memory leaks in import workers. I know they're my fault, so the reporting is working correctly, which used to not be the case. So that's definitely good. Entities in the editor. So they say I see bug fixes related to this pretty much every release. I appreciate how much care you put into making this good. I mean, I definitely agree that like they're putting a lot of bug fixes in every release, but in my opinion, the entities editor is still pretty busted in a lot of ways.
Do you still have you mark the thing and it just goes bananas, and then you like stop the press the play button and stop the execution, and you cannot get rid of exceptions until you start your...
I haven't had that one since some of the newer bug fixes, so that seems to be fixed, which I'm definitely happy for like things like that. But yeah, there's still just like some features that it doesn't quite support, and it's just feels still buggy. And it's just kind of like a really obvious pain point, because it's like one thing that you're interacting with very frequently in the Unity editor. So like when there's small things that go wrong, like those are extremely apparent, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the Unity, has been like a beacon of nice editor design. I feel like it's like a very flexible and well-working editor, even though you can crash it very easily if you just do some stupid editor code. It's like, it's generally a pleasant experience to work in the Unity editor, and then Unity dots come along and like, well, let's just take away half of the convenience, I guess.
Do you have that thing where you're like editing a field and then you hit tab and then like your like caret just goes like somewhere else, like to the beginning, like to the very first field?
Do you say that again? What did you say?
Like if you're editing a field in the inspector and then you hit tab to like go to the next field, like it just goes somewhere else entirely. Like it doesn't go to the next field. Like it just...
Or do you mean like in the specific like entity inspector?
It happens mostly in entity inspectors, but I think it's sometimes happened in like authoring scripts for like certain data types.
I don't know. That hasn't happened to me actually.
Maybe I'm just crazy and don't know how to press tab.
I don't know.
Like it hasn't happened to you at all?
No, I don't think so.
It happens to me all the time,
Maybe
multiple
I don't
times a
use
day.
maybe I don't use tab that much to go through editor inspector values.
Huh.
I don't
Well,
live that much in
pay attention
inspect.
to it. Pay
I'm
attention
gonna.
to it a little bit.
Yes. All right. Yeah. I'm
See if it
curious now.
happens for you.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will come back to you
It's
in a
very
week and like
frustrating.
you
And
shattered
then
my
also like
world.
sometimes it's like I can't like type in like a decimal number. Like I'll type in like 1 6 and then point and then like it doesn't type the point in or like
Are you sure you're using the point and not the comma and some stuff like that?
yeah.
Because like comma and point should be sort of the same thing for me, but one of them doesn't work most of the time. I think I'm not sure. Like comma, oh no, that was not the sign that makes sense in a numerical representation. I'm like, it's a comma, it's a point. There's only one of like there's only one use
Right, yeah.
for a separator, so maybe both of them can be the same thing, I guess. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I definitely still see some bugs, but you know, good that they're cracking away at those.
Yeah.
They say that you know inspectors in Windows are not customizable. So yeah, of course, it would be nice to have a little bit more customization over some of the you know things that we see on the entity side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about the entity's runtime. There's some things in there. Scenes mentions adding the Unity object ref serialization is a big deal and can really help clean up a lot of problems with prefabs. Do also mention that they have an issue where oh yeah, this was the change to make the internal capacity of the linked entity group be 0 instead of 1. This was basically to kind of like reduce the size of like entities just kind of like by default so that like they don't have the linked entity group stored in the chunk.
Right.
So that they do say that now however, standalone prefab entities still receive a linked entity group, resulting in heap allocations when instantiated. He does say that he did a baking system to fix that. So I'm not sure if he was just like removing the linked entity group or somehow changing the internal buffer capacity of that. I'm not sure exactly what the solution was, but you know, it does mention that there's kind of that extra heap allocation now because that data is not being stored in the chunk.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the linked entity being in chunk or not, but yeah, that's one of those things where like maybe in practice, in the end, it makes sense to never have it in the chunk, or you know, yeah, that makes sense to something to like try both ways, and like maybe there is a gain to be made in one of the configurations.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I read this dude's post, I'm like, how do you do this by yourself and make it work? Like, I think I'm a pretty competent programmer, at least I hope so. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's like so complicated custom stuff that like just takes Unity's code and make it better.
Yeah.
And then that's just it.
And actually that was, where did he mention that? That might have been kind of earlier on, but he was kind of saying that how it was like a little bit of like a problem that is that maybe at the end here. Yeah, there somewhere in here he mentions about how like he kind of would like to he was a little bit concerned that some of the internal access to certain things are being kind of closed off or things are kind of being hidden away and not really being exposed as much, so that you know, when you want to do something a little bit more custom, your only option is to really like, you know, fork a package and then, you know, make the modifications yourself and then, you know, use that kind of modified version instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, for transforms, this is kind of like another related thing, but they're you know, the child buffer is no longer a chunk space hog. So if you didn't,
oh yeah, that one too, huh?
because yeah, this is they turned the link or the internal buffer capacity down to 0, so that that's no longer just like taking up a bunch of unnecessary space if you do have kind of a child buffer on there, and you didn't like have that fully populated or anything like that.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting one. In the question he mentions, I've heard there's a new unified transform system coming. Will this new system support writing to the transforms, including transforms that might be children in parallel iJob entity? So do you think it's interesting that he calls out that potentially new unified transform system is coming, which I suppose that kind of makes sense with the unification of game objects and ECS, that they, in order to get that working, they're going to have to kind of have some sort of unified transform system. But
I'm not sure what he means. Will this new support writing to the transforms? Like, he means like, in writing to manage transforms from iJob entities. That's the only thing that makes sense. You can obviously write to the local to world or local transform.
Right. Yeah.
That gotta be.
I guess maybe. Yeah, because I was thinking maybe would there be something with like you couldn't write to the transforms if you're accessing them, but you can always put those kind of like disable the safety checking kind of attributes on the component type.
I'm not following.
Like how like if you're like reading from a transform, but you want to write to a transform on a different entity or something like that. Yeah, you can put that like disable attribute to so it doesn't
on the on the ref coming into the iJob entity.
You have to do that on the component lookup?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
I think so, but maybe I never used that.
No. I feel like you probably would have came across that at some point.
But like, so we have read only, and then we have not read only, and then we have something like free for all. You mean we have read only version, we have not read only, where you can write to it, and that doesn't support parallel writing, right? But
correct,
you can put some attribute onto a component lookup and have it not read only and still have it scheduled parallel.
Right. Yeah.
I like.
There's like
I had
native
no idea.
disable parallel for restriction or something like that.
Oh, I thought that was only for native arrays.
I think it's a component type, unless I'm crazy. But yeah.
I thought it was only.
Yeah, I think you can do that for component lookups.
Unity ECS native disable for parallel. I'm gonna mess that up completely. Let me look up what this says. Oh, that was the most useless. By default, native containers are tracked by the safety system to avoid the race conditions. The safety system, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes you need to express data, job and data access that doesn't fit into the safety system. This attribute lets you explicitly disable this safety system for the specific container. This gives you the full control, but also means that if you, for example, dispose a native array while job is running, the safety system will not be able to give you an error message at all. Well, this native disable container safety restriction, maybe that's not the same thing. You said
no, native disable, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different one. It's something along those lines. I don't remember.
I know which one you mean. Yeah, I know which one you mean. I thought I Googled the thing that you mean, and it didn't give me the documentation for it. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna look this up. Maybe I've been using it a little bit wrong all this time. This is not a problem that I've been actually having to deal with a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, we should soon get to the parallel thing that I was, because this actually is about that slightly.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, he also mentions graphics, physics. One of the bad things he says is the physics package is extremely wasteful of chunk memory, multiple dynamic buffers of random capacities, bools that aren't bit packed, enums that use 4 bytes, optional values, and suboptimal field orderings. Acceleration structures do a much better job of packing data on its own, but I think with some C# properties, you could reduce your ECS footprint while still having an accessible API. So yeah, I haven't necessarily dove too much into kind of the memory layout of some of the things like that, but it definitely sounds like there are still some potential efficiency gains that could be had there, because yeah, they're definitely, the physics system can get out of hand if you're not careful, for sure.
That's interesting. I didn't know that there were so many mistakes, if you can call it that. But it's
Right?
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's just other people writing that code and then make the same mistake as us.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
He also, of course, mentions the character controller, netcode packages, DSP graph. I like this. The package still works.
Yay.
Final thoughts. So he says user trust is still a concern right now, so you'll have to forgive me as I'm still extremely skeptical and fearing the worst, but I definitely have a little bit more hope than I did in my last review. I think there's still a major uphill battle ahead before a unified game object / ECS is ready for the masses.
Yeah. I feel like probably not too far off.
Fair enough.
It feels maybe they have some nice thing to reveal soon, but I feel like that's a steep hill to climb.
Yeah, it definitely will. I mean, it's will be really interesting to see what the game object and ECS unification will be looking like, of course. But yeah, there's definitely still a lot of questions right now, and again, I'm sure they're very busy over at Unity.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, shout out to DreamingImLatios. I wish I could give you a like on this post, but forums are in read-only mode right now. So, but yeah, so a good little read through. Would definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, animation system win. We'll see.
Soon. Trademark.
Soon TM.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is kind of our little topic of discussion there, and then so yeah, we can kind of move over into our instruction set. So you want to showcase a couple of things related to a little Boids project that you've been working on, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna bring up my. So my brain has been now going crazy over what you just said. Like, is it possible to do, like, because part of the reason the quest is like trying to get around that issue that supposedly native disabled parallel for restriction could actually sort of deal with. I am not convinced that it will fix the same thing that I'm trying to fix, and I will show you why. So this is interesting. I'm very curious to see if you have the same idea as me. So let's see here. Add the stage. Do I have my thing here somewhere? How? No, that's the one. I just put yours on.
Yeah.
Here. Let me just press this to. There we go.
Infinite void.
Yes. Is my computer? Is the thing showing now?
No, it's just showing the
Really?
StreamYard thing. Yeah. Are you doing window sharing?
Yeah, I took the wrong one. Let me see here. Sorry for the delay. There we go. Now you can see my stuff.
That's looking like Unity.
Yeah, so we can just take a look. So we got the I should mention this earlier. Easy settings that I talked about is actually available on the asset store now.
Oh, okay. Heck yeah.
Maybe I should link it.
Drop a link.
Yeah, but as you can see on the right side there, this is the thing that easy settings does for you. Let's see here if I can get a link going. I can just post it.
I can pull it up for you if you want to just start chatting.
Yeah, and maybe I can't even find my. There we go. There you have a link. I send it to you. Okay. So just quickly, this alignment, coherence, and separation, that's the typical different properties of a Boyd system that maybe people recognize. Alignment is making sure that Boyds are going in the same direction. Coherence means that they're trying to go to the same point, their average point together as a group. And separation means that they will, when they come too close to each other, they will divert and not bump into each other. So there's several different ways to implement these kind of things, but this is like the general view of what a Boyd system means. If at least so far as I understand it, I guess there's some subjectivity in it, but these are literally the ones that says on Wikipedia. So and we can take a look at what this. So that thing in the editor right there, that's this thing. So that's how easy settings work. It's like you create a static class and then you put all the variables that you want, and then you put this thing, easy settings, and then you just use it wherever you want to use it. And the variables are just controlled through here. There's literally zero code additional except for what you just saw. So it's pretty.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I use it all the time, and I really like it. So
cool.
Check out the link if you want cool settings. Anyway, end of salesman talk. So I think there's like 3 different levels of Boids that I thought about for the parallelism, because one of the things that you need to deal with is like you need to parallelize, so you like all of them can like properly understand like this is the direction I'm trying to go at, this is the position I'm like gravitated towards, and then like I need to like not hit other people, and that code should be parallelized in some sense to make it fast. So here we have simulate Boids simple. I'm just gonna. I had plans to make this a little bit more clean and interactive. Unfortunately, I got hit in the head with the works on my machine problems today, so I was a little bit sidetracked on a consulting thing. But we're gonna get through it. Yes.
Could you zoom in on the code a little bit, actually?
Oh yeah. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fundamental thing that I think I'm trying to solve is like I want to accumulate the average direction and the average position, because those attain to coherence and alignment, right? And I want to accumulate them in a way that doesn't require its own job or anything like that, and it shouldn't require a long like list, because like how would you accumulate all the average position of like 1,000 or 1,000,000 Boids? Like one way is to have the native queue and a parallel writer, and then you just write all of the different positions into the queue parallel, and then on the main thread, single threaded, you just average them out and you get the point, right?
You just kind of go through that or the queue basically, and then just kind of average one at a time to get the whole thing.
Yeah, and like the actual acquiring of all of these positions. But like this I think would be something I would write like 4 years ago. But so first of all, think about this is probably more or less completely unnecessary, because because you already have all of these positions more or less. Well, they are inside of a transform, but you can also just iterate. You can they are already laid out in the chunk arrays, so you should be able to just take the chunk array. So like this whole thing becomes like double. How do I explain? this array of positions that you get out, it's already in the chunks, right? There's already arrays of these transforms on. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it feels so weird to have to then afterwards do this addition of all of them together, since you're like, well, they're already somewhere in the memory in a long line,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So why do I have to copy it? So one way would be to take the query of whatever this stuff, boy data, right? And find all the different chunks and just go through the a flat list of the query of uh, have you ever used that? We can take this query object here. So I just write it somewhere. You can like get component array data, 2-component array data,
Oh yeah. Sure.
local transform, right? So you could just get all of them out like this
Yeah.
and then add them up and average them. But that is the thing I want to do parallelized. Like adding them all together. Why can't we do that together, like parallelized while we're already running through them in parallel for the Boyd update loop? Do you understand what I mean? Like adding them together should be possible somehow, not do on the one single thread on the main. So what the first version, and this is the one that I actually think is the most reasonable version to do this, is like I wanted to make different groups of Boids. So you have like, because I wanted to surround a player with a bunch of Boids, and then you have like different groups of like 1,000 Boids simulating in its own little world, in its own little group, and then have another group and just surround a player with it. So then what I can do is I can parallelize those groups one by one. So one group get their own thread. So you get the whole parallelization with it. You get up to 32 parallel ones if you choose 32 different groups. And then if you look at we can take a look at the thing here. So this is the one I'm trying to use, that's working better. So instead of adding all of them together, putting them all into a queue, this is like accumulated directions and accumulated positions, and then the index here is for every single of these groups of Boids. And then I can do like this instead. So I have this thing. This job is run for every group once, and it goes through all of the different Boids in that group. So that could be like 1,001 in group 1 and 1,001 in group 2, right? And I can treat the individual groups as a single thread, non-parallelized. Do you see what I mean? So I don't.
Are you saying on each thread you're basically doing the average for that group?
Yes.
Yeah.
To get together with the whole simulation of the actual Boid. Right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I do the simulation of the actual Boid, so their movement is simulated. And then in the end, I take the new position and I add it together. And I treat, one thread for every single specific group of Boids. That way I can get, because having different groups of Boids is, very reasonable thing. Like if you have a school of fish, and you're simulating them under the sea in a game under the sea. Obviously, you want a bunch of fish over here, and then want a bunch of fish over there, and all of them are
right.
And you can treat them in isolation and just let them be on their own thread, and then you don't have to deal with actually paralyzed that thing, which is the annoying part about one of the annoying part, because the average direction, average precision, that's where the rubber meets the road, where it's hard to make it actually parallelized, because they're all have the same data that they need to figure out and share, right? So in this case, like with this, how do I make this job run once for every group in the whole system. Like, have you dealt with this situation where you're like trying to split it up, so you're doing parallel, but you have a specific set of entities. They're identical more or less to every other, but you choose exactly what
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I've done things like that, like using shared components.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I'm doing here.
Nice.
That's literally it. So I have this group data, and with the group data, you can throw in some local variants, so you can have some multipliers, so the group gets its own alignment, right? And you go through the group data, and you have your query, and you set your filter to whatever shared data you want to be the filter. So every entity that actually has this shared data is being queued into this schedule, so not scheduled parallel, right? And then you can have as many groups as you can and put them all into its own single threaded scheduled parallel thread. And then you don't have to deal with the actual parallelization of the accumulation of the different cohesiveness structure data that you need to pull together. Yeah, it's I don't know if I'm making a good job of explaining the whole, but I think you understand what
I'm
I mean.
following.
And
Yeah.
so that, I think, and I also thought about another level that you could do with this, and that would be to because a slight backup, I realize most of the things are oh yeah, it's giving me the generated thing when I try to find the definition. A lot of the dependency traffic jam is on this one, right? All of the different entities have a local transform, and they want to read it and they want to write to it. So this native parallel 4, you mean that this would let me, well, I mean component like that, right? Would that mean, according to what we just talked about, that I can read and write to that however I want?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm not set up to try this right now.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, but I'm gonna for sure look into that and see how that works, if that works, because one way, by the way, to make this work is to split them up otherwise, and I think that would be the way you would do it if you lived in 1995, is to have 12 or 32 or 16, whatever, different components and different local transform components, and have each of those components for each of the different Boyd groups. So you like literally split them up into different groups by different components, so they don't have the same component dependency, right? Have you ever thought about doing something crazy like that? Because I literally done that to make stuff split up properly.
I don't think so. No.
I've just duplicated the same component over and over and over again until I can just have the same data but a different definition. So I have
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so everybody has the same data. It's just in a differently named component that has the exact same containment. Right. And that was the only way I could get rid of the dependency with my limited knowledge.
It works, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so here, this is also kind of a fascinating thing. So I read from it, I read from the data. Well, I read it from here. This is, in. So this is coming in from this is the actual data. And then I do the simulation, and then I finalize the position and rotation and everything, and I put it into this. For me, new transforms contains all the new transforms for all the Boids.
Okay.
And the reason why I have this thing that we're talking about, because I don't know if this index is going to be, because otherwise yeah, I just want to be able to write to it however I want, because I know that I am on the right index. I don't know if the safety system agrees with me, so I just disable it. But I think I can probably remove it. But the way I do it, so because this one, is getting simulated like once for every group, and I can't write to new transforms over and over with several different parallelized jobs. So I write to a new array with the new transforms, with all the new data that I want to push. And then after, so this is the one I'm pushing in, I simulate the Boids, I wait for the completion, and then I take this, well, we can make, this is the list of lists. And then I do this where I basically do the same type of a shared component filter and copy the whole local transform array I just produced onto the existing onto the chunk.
Okay.
Because in the job I can't actually write to it, because the safety system prevents me from scheduling several jobs that writes to the same component. So I just writes to individual split it up arrays instead. So that's one of the things that I think it's very, very nice for people to work with. It's like these things that you have in query, in an entity query, copy from component data array. You can take out and put in big data arrays in and out of the query. So the query is basically a way to I want to grab these chunks, and then I want these specific component array from the chunks, and I want to read them, or I want to overwrite them with my new data. And since most of the things are going through jobs and going through the idiomatic for eaches and everything, people don't really realize sometimes that you can just write directly to the arrays if you just have the entity query that just describes what chunks you want to write to. Yeah. I just saw something going on. Oh, no, never mind. Anyway, so this is the way I do it. So I simulate all of the different ones, and then I produce their individual independent native arrays of the new data, and then I push it onto the Boyd system. And this, I think, is the best way to do it, completely parallelized, without having to have this native queue parallel writer accumulator thing that we talked about in the beginning. You can just have you can just treat every single group as its own thing in its own single threaded parallel thread. So that's how I'm dealing with this. And we can just have a look at the Boids that is already going. They are not working super well, and they are not a lot yet. But yeah, you can see there's some Boids going on here.
Cool. And so this is kind of working in that way that you were saying, where you kind of have multiple groups of Boids.
Yeah, and this is only one
each
group.
doing their, yeah.
This is only one group, and that's part of the thing that I got a little bit kicked in the head on the path, not having the time to implement the multiple group thing. But yeah, so the Boids are basically working like it should. It's just different groups. Maybe some bugs with that, but that's the thing that I'm going to implement for the
Right.
jam, and then put something inside of all of the different 32 groups, and then you got to shoot your way out. That's my idea.
Nice.
Yes. Okay. So to finish this one, let me show you the spicy thing. This is a code I got from Zek or Frederick at Stalak, one of the two that has been on all the streams.
Yep.
And I think I showed you this before. Ooh.
Unsafe stuff.
Yes. So like all of these are, tied onto that goddamn, where is it? Local transform thing. Mm-hmm. That's the dependency that just strains the whole system, because everything needs to go through the local transform. So what if you just, I know which chunks are which. I know where I am. I know that my index is a specific index, my group index, and I won't overwrite whatever I'm doing. I just I just want to get a hold of the local transform and read and write to it. I know that I want to read to another one or write to another one or anything like that. I know what I'm doing. So this is old school type of, parallel. So that's the way you would do it. And this is the way they worked for the crawlers in just read instructions. So this is a custom function that like picks out, this is written into one of the source codes in the entity packages. And it just picks out straight up the read write byte array pointer to any chunk array. That's exactly what it does. Make sense?
Yep.
You just provide the type that you want. You say with chunk, and then you have to give it a global system for some reason. That's the internal system in Unity. That's, not internal, but it's not really relevant in this case. Then you get out this local transform pointer, and then you can just use it to do anything, and there's no safety anywhere around this. And so in this case, then you can just paralyze the crap out of it. But so, for example, if you actually run this completely paralyzed and not split it up in groups or anything like that, then you can have, 2 different Boids in the same group or, simulating together, doing their parallel stuff going on here, doing these calculations, and then they come here. And they're like, oh, I'm going to add my forward to the shared forward, so we all can agree on an average forward. And this is not an atomic operation. Do you know what I mean with that?
Like it has to do the individual. Like, what do you mean? I guess.
Atomic operation is something, generally speaking, nothing really in a high-level language like C# is an atomic operation. But if you use, for example, interlocked increment ref var tests like this, this means that we will increase test by 1, and this thing cannot be screwed up by a context switch from another thread coming in. So it means that this thread will do this increment of test completely thread safe in itself. No other thread will come in and mess with this memory at the same time. So atomic operation means basically like this is supposed to be like a single instruction on the CPU, so you can't have any race condition on it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is very far from a atomic operation. So you can get like, oh, I'm going to start picking out this direction, and I'm like putting in the X value, and then I get stopped, and now the other thread is going into the memory and doing this thing, and it's putting in the Y and Z value. So I got a split between X, Y, and Z coming from different things because you got a context switch in the middle of the operation. So that's why this is very unsafe, right? You can have literally different threads coming in and just screwing up it because they're all doing the same thing, and it's not one operation. It's several operations getting intermixed with each other. Is there a comment that the increment will not have a race condition even if you...
We get a lot of comments here, actually. So yeah, I think he's just calling out the interlock.increment method that you were sharing here.
Oh, that one? The increment would not have a race condition even if we increment the same across threads. Yeah, exactly. But this will. Please, the chat, correct me. I'm talking about this like I'm 100%, but you can never be 100% about anything. It's too complex nowadays. But this has worked. This is the way I understand it, the way I've programmed it for a long time. So yeah, in increments, like you can do whatever you want across all type of threads. This thing will always keep synchronized, so the memory will always be up to date on all the threads everywhere, and no thread will come in and kick you in the head while you're incrementing some value, because an increment is a read, add, and save. So that's literally at least 3 operations in assembly. So in the middle of those assembly lines, you can have a context switch. Like, no, it's time for thread number C now. And then you're like, but I just loaded in the value. Like, too bad. I'm going to add it.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and then the other thing takes out the value and takes out the same value, and both of them add 1 to the same value, and it gets back, and then you miss one of the adds because both of them added 1 to the same value instead of one adding 1 to one value and then the other one adding to the already changed value. Okay, yes. Whew. Feels good to get approved from random internet strangers. Thank you, Bonte.
By the
Anyway.
way, there is no safety anywhere.
It's all just pointers in memory and yeah. But so yeah, that's the spicy way of doing it. Damn, I got a lot of flies here.
Yeah, I'm seeing them fly across the camera there.
That's the negative part of living on a horse farm. There's a lot of horse poop everywhere, so
I could imagine.
Very a lot of no mosquitoes, but flies. A lot of flies. Yeah, so that's basically what I want to show you. The spicy version, one where you just do the slightly naive parallel writer. I mean, this thing will go a lot faster than any game object version of it, where you just process everything, but you still need to take care of this native queue in the end. And then you have my version where I'm like, well, maybe I can just parallelize it to different groups of Boids instead of trying to parallelize one set of Boid simulations. And then the last one is like, well, screw your safety, and you just get the goddamn array and you write to it like it's my God-given right.
This is my program.
Yes.
I'm gonna write to the memory.
But if we take away this thing, have you written a Boid code in the last years?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna mention that I think we did a stream actually a couple months ago now where I was showcasing just a simple little Boid thing that I created. So if people want a little bit of information on like a super simple Boid 2D Boid implementation, they could check that video out.
Yeah, this is all my Boid code. I was kind of happy that it didn't take much more than this.
Nice, looks clean.
Yes, all of this are just
just vector math. Yeah,
vector, mostly just like the vector cross thing. Like, oh, you're going this way, and I'm pointing this way. Yeah. Well, I get a torque rotational, and you can just translate cohesive separation and alignment all to just like rotational things, and then just like have scalars on all the different cross products.
Right. Yeah.
So it works out pretty well. Anyway, I think that's basically it. That's trying to make better Boids. We'll see in 2 days if I feel like I did a good job or not.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so a couple things that I do want to bring up here from Bonte. So I think this was in regards to your kind of group-based approach. So it says this will work well, but the one problem is you no longer get work stealing. So this means if you have groups, which many different sizes, certain threads will work longer and some shorter.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. I hadn't come to that point.
And if you have less groups than you have threads, then the threads go idle because it is a group per thread.
Yeah. I guess that's why I call it the quest for it. Now it's something that really sounds.
No, I mean it's definitely like a good, valid thing. That you want to try out.
I think there's just like zero chance of not having an annoying trade-off to make. There's like, I have something stuck. Sorry. What the heck is going on? There we go. Sorry. All of it's gonna have a weird, annoying trade-off. You can't make it perfectly parallelized anyway. So, but this is a very good point. That's the backside of one of the backside of what I'm doing. Yeah.
And by the way, I think this was in relation to the component lookup doing the disable parallel for restriction. So saying that it's an option that we can do, but it's going to be costly because most likely because those are going to incur random lookups. Is kind of what I'm guessing.
Oh, right, yeah, and and this that makes sense actually. That's main because it's literally random access. Sorry, God, jeez, something is.
We got to get you a fly swatter.
Yeah, well, I have one, but it's like I've used it so much that it's broken. This is
burning through fly swatters over there.
Normal amount of flies in my right now. I don't know what's going on.
It's because you got the big. It's because you got the big lights.
Yeah, probably actually nighttime, and I'm using the big light. This is an interesting comment. Well, there is a solution which doesn't have these trade-offs. I'm just very well. We maybe it's hard to go straight into it, but I'm very curious to how you accumulate all of these positions without having any race conditions on. Well, I guess you can maybe have like a locker.
What I was kind of thinking almost is like, what if you did like in your parallel jobs, like for on each thread, they kind of like, or in each job, they kind of like accumulate their own kind of average value, and then once those are all done, then you just add up the averages.
Yeah, that's a very good point also. Yeah, that's a good upgrade. Yeah, actually, yeah. I also in the group
I guess
thing.
that could be kind of weird if they were like different lengths though.
But
you know what I mean? Like
but
if like one group had like a lot of entities and like one group didn't have a lot, like you wouldn't want the ones that didn't have a lot to contribute as much to the average.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
But I think the common case would just be like, yeah, we have this amount, we like find a good split for it, and then we have a single thread that have the annoying rest part, but all other ones are this exact same amount, right? So that would be like, I have 10,005. Then like, well, we split up the 1,000 into 8 groups, and then we have the 5 in its own, or something like that. That would probably make it more or less efficient to the
Makes
point
sense.
where, yeah. So, but I guess that's also depends on like how much control do you have over the worker threads. Yeah, I'm getting distracted slightly by keep getting comment by this Bonte dude who has upgrades, because as we said, the position that is already there and prepared. Yes, exactly. But the important part is that's why we use IO. Well, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me not be distracted anymore. I'll
No,
read
it's
the
all
comments.
good. We want to get the people involved.
Because I'm curious to how you would accumulate all the positions, but yeah, I guess the one you propose is actually like almost all the way there. Yeah, you like let the threads do as much as they can, and then you just squash these like 8 different values together in the end.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Very good point.
Thread
Yeah,
index
I knew that was a thing to use, but I just didn't think about no, yeah, I don't know. I just one of those times where like you don't see the obvious thing right in front of you.
Yeah.
So nice. Well, anyway, the unsafe thing is something to think about if you need the performance and you you cannot allow yourself to be locked down by a component dependency. So that's a cool thing. Yeah, thread index attributes. Yeah. All right. I think maybe that's enough of
Cool.
my problem.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, and all the best if you get some time this weekend. I know you got a bunch of other crazy stuff going on, but hopefully,
yes. I think it will be all right. On Sunday, I can probably just speed run,
bang out a little bit, yeah.
like a proper game jam. Hopefully, my girlfriend doesn't get super annoyed at me being super busy at the computer for a Sunday, but we'll see. maybe I can
Fair
make it up
enough.
somehow.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, with that, we can kind of get into the closing portions of our show. So here we like to do the dynamic allocation, which is the fun things that we have to share with the community. You have something that you want to share with the people this week?
No, actually not. I was thinking about it, but I'm a little bit. No, I haven't forget. I guess my easy settings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how about we show your easy settings one more time here. So easy settings available now on the Unity Asset Store, only available for $10. That's quite a
Very
steal
cheap.
there.
Yeah. It's a tool that solves a very specific thing. So it's not like final IK, which just fixes all IK for your whole game and stuff. This is like settings, and it does it well. Like options for in the options menu for player settings, like mouse sensitivity and all of that stuff. But it's a very specific thing. So
Yeah.
I hope people can see the opportunity and see if they like it. I would love to have feedback on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So
What about
what I wanted to share is, so some people may have seen this. So last week was the Games Done Quick. Are you familiar with the Games
Yes.
Done Quick speedrun event?
Yes.
So basically, I think they do it about 2 times a year. They have like a big event. There's like one early in the year and there's one in the summer. So they just did the summer one last week. It's basically a 7-day marathon where they're just like streaming speedrunning of games back to back to back. And so it's a really cool event. It's, they're raising money for charity and everything like that. So I wanted to call out this run because it's a particularly interesting one here. It's a Super Mario 64 randomizer blindfolded. So a Super Mario 64 randomizer, it basically randomizes like the order of all the levels. So you know how like in Super Mario 64 when you like jump into a painting, it like takes you to a specific world and you play through that, pick up the stars and everything. So it basically randomizes it. So when you jump into a painting, it goes to some random world and you don't know which one it is. And then it also randomizes like the order of the stars for like which stars that you like pick up and everything. And so this guy is doing a blindfolded randomized run.
What the fuck?
So the way he does it is when the timer starts, he goes into the world and then he plans out his route. So he figures out what stars he's going to collect and figure out how he's going to complete the game. And then when he's ready to go, he puts on the blindfold and then actually does it.
So he got all of the different maps completely memorized, I guess.
Yeah. So this is I think it's a 10-star run is what he does. So he collects 10 stars and then, beats Bowser or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, insane.
Yeah. This game is, I guess, one of the most broken by speedrunners in the world right now. It's like crazy how much they do with it. Yeah.
This is so amazing. Yeah, the whole history of the Super Mario 64 speed running and the whole community. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Have you seen this like a guy Case or something on YouTube which have like sort of decoded the whole original source code and optimized the hell out of the game?
I don't know if I have. No,
that could have been. I can see if I can find it quickly. It's like he have made the game running like 60 FPS, perfectly stable, with like increased texture resolution. It's like insanely impressive, and it's just because he just dug through like literally the whole source code and like turned every stone he can do and just made Mario 64 run like twice as fast on the original hardware.
Oh wow.
Yes, and now I can't. I just had my YouTube front page just completely drenched by this person for like 5 days, and now I can't find a single one of them. Nintendo 64.
After you've watched all his videos, now YouTube has no more videos of his to recommend.
Yeah.
After you binge watch them all.
You can see here if we can just link the most popular, fixing the entire Super Mario 64 source code. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm just gonna post it right here like this. Yeah, there we go. That's my dynamic allocation then, I guess. Additionally,
right.
I for people who are fascinated by optimization, it's just mind blowing. This guy is like, well, the original creators, the programmers of Mario 64, they did this thing, and it was like fairly, okay, but I made it 10 times faster.
Yeah,
Like
it's
by
really
this.
interesting, like, because now you have all the modern technological developments and discoveries and everything that you can kind of like now apply to some of those older games.
Yes, exactly, and it's like and also like you remember
So is this
this.
like this running on? This
Yeah,
is like
all
an
of this.
emulator, right?
No, well, this particular, but everything he does basically he runs on the original hardware.
Wow.
Yes, he has made like a custom rendering engine, rebuilt the whole rendering engine, and built a bunch of his own levels, and
Yeah, these are cool.
made it into a ROM and just plays it on the original N64 in like 60 FPS with like way better
Wow.
graphics than the original one. And
Crazy.
there's one point where it's like, oh, this famous fast inverse square root that made famous by Carmack on Doom. And like every other comment I get on this channel is like, why aren't you using this fancy fast square root that Carmack invented? And he's like, man, this is bad, and I'm gonna explain why. And then he just and then he explains what it does and the accuracy and the trade-offs, and then it comes to the end. It's like, so the only real usage of this function is in visual effects that needs vector normalization, because you are not that accurate. And guess what? That's exactly what they used it for in Doom 2. So the optimization I've done in Nintendo 64 with all of the stuff, and I've done my own like square root optimization, most of them like do not benefit from this function.
Interesting.
Just like in Doom, they didn't use the fasting for either because it wasn't the right function. It's just this like comment. What
Is
the
that
fuck?
is that another video that he did, or was that
Yeah, it's
somewhere in this
another video.
video?
He got like 10 super interesting videos just on the Mario 64 optimization. But this one is the main one where he goes through it.
Cool.
Yeah, but this guy and his voice may make him sound not that old. I would guess that he's younger than me. So I'm like, dude, like hardcore assembly optimization, and you sound like you're like 26 or something. Like,
Oh,
Jesus
interesting. I might have
Christ.
watched this video, it looks like,
Yes. Well,
before.
you just watched, that was the one you just had on.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and he like, oh, they this annoying thing in Mario where you jump and you like get stuck here and the input is like unresponsive. Yeah, I fixed that bug. I found the if statement that was wrong and I fixed it, so now it's much easier to play. He just like fixes whole Mario 64.
This guy's got a lot of videos on Mario 64. Holy cow. Going back
Yes.
5 years
Yes,
plus.
he's I think he by now rewritten the whole thing.
Dang.
Yes, so.
Well, shout out to Kays.
And for us who actually we know more about the actual details than the average YouTube watcher, obviously there's some nitty-gritty
There's some
details that
good
is
stuff in there.
super fascinating, and
Cool.
I don't know how interesting it is for somebody who doesn't understand it, but for me it's like just
Awesome. I'll check
yummy.
some of these out for sure. This is
Yes.
awesome. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for keeping the flies at bay.
I think probably the door to the patio is open, and I can't see it from here, and that's what's going on.
You're actually just using the flies as a reference material for your Boids simulation.
Yes. Obviously. What else would I do? Just be annoyed by them? That's an inefficient.
Like, see them fly. You're like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
That's how they do it. Yes. All right.
Okay, so yeah, and then yeah, thanks for sharing your Boids implementation. Of course, thank you for everyone for hanging out with us here today. Also, do want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and YouTube supporters, especially the ones at the CPU registered tier, which is our highest tier. So thank you to eCool for your support. We really do appreciate it. And yeah, if you do support us over on Patreon and YouTube, check out all the cool bonus videos that I have recently just put up there. So yeah, with that, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Hot Path Show. Tobias, you got any parting words for us here today?
Yes. Even me, as a professional game developer for 12 years now, didn't see the obvious solution in front of me, and you guys showed me, and I was like, "Damn, yes, nice." So you should stay humble. You never
Yeah,
know what you
sometimes
miss.
it just takes a second pair of eyes, and we get stuck in a problem. A lot of times you kind of get the blinders going, right? You're so
Yes.
fixated on the solution, and you're like maybe trying to look for variations of that solution, but then there's this other thing that you could also do instead
The
that
funny
works.
thing is, like, basically that type of a data structure where you just have sub arrays for the different subgroups, and you accumulate them each on their own in their own thread. That's how I synchronize the crawlers in just read instructions. So I already have done
You're like
similar
already
thing.
doing it, yeah.
Yeah, but I just didn't think about it in this context. So yeah, I good stuff. Stay humble.
Good stuff indeed. All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and close up the show. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Good luck with the last 48 hours or so of the Misc Games Game Jam. And yeah, we'll see you next week for an exciting episode of the Hot Path Show. Later, everybody.
Bye.